Hi everyone, and welcome to our first questioning video, which is looking at this principle of serve and return. So first question for you then, how often do you ask questions in class? Now I'm hoping everyone is sitting there and saying, well, every lesson, of course, but how often will you then ask that student a follow-up question? How often is it that you go around and you're doing your questioning techniques, you're asking the students a question, but the key bit there is one singular question. You ask little Johnny this question, he gives you whatever answer it is, and away you go to someone new. How often are you actually asking a follow-up question to whatever answer that student gives us? And I think that from when I've been wandering around, from reading the different bits of feedback that obviously come into us as a central area, then it's not something that we are necessarily doing to the level that we could do. That's not to say it's everyone, but I think that it's something that we could develop as a staff to ask these follow-up questions. In terms of why we're going to focus on this need to ask the follow-up questions then, is if we have a look at a very simple little example here. I've put my history knowledge to the test, so apologies history department if it is absolutely terrible. But if we have our teacher name one of the key developments of surgery at the start of the 19th century, and the response student A gives us is infection. The teacher then moves on to something completely different. Another student answers a question, and there it ends. So does that interaction actually reveal the depth of their understanding? Sure, they've been able to recall one of those actual key problems, but do they know why that is the issue? Would they be able to actually answer a question appropriately on an exam paper to get marks with just that word infection? Do we know if they actually understand why that has been a big problem of surgery in the 19th century? So my suggestion is we could change that interaction ever so slightly by adding this follow-up. So we're starting the same way, name one of the key problems of surgery at the start of the 19th century, still getting our infection response first of all, but rather than moving on to another student in the class, what we're doing is we're firing back a follow-up question. Why was this a problem? So rather than just accepting that single word answer, we're going back, we want more information from them. So the student here, a lot of people who managed to survive surgery later died because of infections. Okay, we now understand that they get the fact that these infections were occurring post-surgery and creating death. We can then ask a further follow-up question, which is how can we upgrade our language from lots of people died to something better? And hopefully the student would give us this perfect example, because this student is clearly the best student ever and knows all the correct answers: high mortality rate. But what we've now got, in very simply asking a couple of follow-up questions, we delve deeper, we understand their greater level of understanding of this whole concept. They've made this connection to, well, infection leads to this because, and they've also had an opportunity to improve the actual quality of language that they're using in their answers. So it's not a case of we're just accepting this very basic entry-level language that won't always secure them those marks on their exam papers. We're pushing them that little bit further. So why are we doing this? Why is it important? Well, first of all, the students can actually make connections between their prior knowledge and this new knowledge we're giving them. If we're asking these follow-up questions, they're having to think about it. It also is going to train them into not giving those superficial responses, that one-word answer they think is going to get them that mark on an exam, when often it won't. We're letting them not get into those lazy habits, really. And it gives us the chance to really get a good understanding of how much knowledge they have and how deep that knowledge is on the topic. So what I'd like you to try and do then is try the why. The why questions are the ones that we can use as dead easy follow-ups. And if you've had a small child in your life at some point, you know they're excellent at the whys. You gave them an explanation for something and the first thing they said to you, why? You answer that, another question, why? And it goes on. And you have to think about it in order to actually answer their questions, to explain this to them in a better way. Same thing we want our students to be able to do. So some example questions I've given you here. Why do you think that? Why did they say that? Why did they do it that way? Why did that happen? Why did you pick that phrase? So easy. They give you a response to your first question, follow it up with a why, or If that doesn't work in your context, another follow-up question to delve that bit deeper. Give it a try, and as always, don't forget, staff code in our little comment section at the bottom to win those department goodies, or at least a chance to win those department goodies.